Hello and welcome to the new Ashla podcast. Today we're joined by Courtney Dematteo, the Life Alchemist. I love that, by the way.
Mhm.
That is cool.
Thank you.
So I want to welcome you to the show, Courtney. Say hi to the folks. Maybe introduce yourself. Share some things about yourself that you're comfortable with, and let us know a little bit about you.
Sure. Hi, folks. My name is Courtney Dematteo, as you said. I am a life alchemist, which I love to tell people is the blending of science and magic. And this was a long time coming. So I've been various versions of life coach, business coach, Reiki master teacher, and each one of those seemed to be in a compartment as I was working my old business. And that business, we'll probably get to it, but that business came to a screaming halt, crash and burn in flaming style for various reasons. And of course, I've come to realize that it had to happen, despite the fact that I held on, fighting it tooth and nail. I've now come to understand and realize that there is no reason for the compartments. And so energy is energy, and we need to focus on all of it, not just pieces of it, and not just pieces of it at certain times, but understanding that it all works together. And so by blending all of my modalities, coaching, so the cognitive coaching, the energetic coaching, Reiki. Now I'm also a hypnotherapist, so blending hypnotherapy and channeling, which is something that I was keeping to myself for a very long time. But I do channel. And so blending all of that together brings the science and magic together, which creates the alchemy.
What,
Oh, sorry, go
no,
ahead.
it's okay. What kind of channeling? I noticed channeling is like branching out a lot lately, and it's like
Mhm.
everybody kind of specializes. What kind of channeling are you into? Or are you doing?
So it started with automatic writing,
Okay,
and
I
that
love
kind of
that.
freaked me out. I'll be honest.
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
freaked me out. I was channeling some really wild things and some crazy experiences. And once I realized what I was doing, I started to do it more intentionally and practiced it. And then I realized that as I'm writing it down, what's actually happening is it's coming into me. It's coming into my screen of awareness.
Yeah.
And so now, instead of having to write it down, it's simply a conversation. It's a conversation that I'm having with, whatever you want to call it, source
Right.
energy.
Hmm.
But that conversation is very clear and very direct, and it works wonderfully while I'm in session with clients. And so the messages that they need to hear, it comes through, and even some setting up some future scene situations. And we can get into the time travel later, but it just comes through as a conversation, and I can ask questions and I get answers. It's really powerful, and it's very fun.
Yeah, that's kind of
Oh,
cool.
wow.
So like, and we'll get into this into like the six
Mhm.
steps and stuff later that you kind of do now.
Sure.
But so like if you're doing one thing and then all of a sudden you start channeling, do you just like stop and go, oh, hold on, we got to do this, or do you kind of like consciously just start that process?
No, it's definitely conscious at this point.
Okay.
It used to be where it would just, when you're first understanding your
Right.
intuition, you kind of have to be knocked upside the head in
Uh-huh.
order to recognize that intuition is trying to talk to you.
Right.
And so
Yep.
that absolutely happened. But now it's very conscious. It's I don't want to say the word controlled, but it's intentional.
Right. Right.
That's a better word for it anyway.
Yeah,
Oh, that's so cool. So is that a part of your practice now? I mean, it sounds like it, like, so it
it
integrates
is.
within the life alchemy. Wow.
Oh, I can't do anything now without without being open, right,
That's
to the
cool.
channeling. So allowing it, it's like, even when I'm doing the cognitive coaching, it's kind of funny because I'll be talking as a coach and offering my, wisdom, and then something else will be coming through. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I have to stop, scratch everything I just said. What you actually need to hear is this. So sorry for what I told you. Don't believe it. Disregard it. Let's listen to what higher power has to say.
It's good. It's good to have friends, right, to help us out.
Yes.
Yeah, especially those friends that are kind of in the know, if you know what I mean.
That is for sure.
It's kind of funny that you were talking about, compartmentalizing these things, and they're like in different
Mhm.
spots. That's something that makes this partnership with Michael so awesome. Is that he is this and I am that, and we just
Mm.
it blends so well, and it just comes out so good. I did a podcast for many years before. And every show was hit or miss. It was like, sometimes we're bumping heads and stuff. We don't do that anymore. And even though he's
Mm.
way more analytical and kind of along that vein, and I'm kind of more the wispy philosopher over here. It blends so well.
It's
It does.
such a good meld.
Just understanding perspective, and
Hmm.
that every single person has their own lens that they're seeing things through, and
Right.
no one can look at one picture and see, or no two people can look at one picture and see the same thing.
Right.
And so that's why anything having to do with multiple perspectives is going to be a much, I say, much richer
Yeah.
experience.
And you're tapping
Yeah.
into all kinds of stuff now, so you're good.
Oh
You're
yeah.
good to go.
Well, and that's one of the things that's great about these interviews we started doing is it's like we bring in these other perspectives from these different
Hmm.
fields of life, these different niches of mastery to help with the messages we've been giving because it's all the same circle for the most part. Everyone has the same sort of vision when it comes to this space.
Mhm.
And there's so much wisdom that can be gained. I know I've learned a lot from you, Courtney. I've gone through your coaching program and
Mhm.
it was so transformative. And that's one of the reasons I'm so glad you came on today is because you're such a wealth of information. I think all these things you're getting into are just so cool, especially because you were really good at what you were doing. And
Thank
to
you.
be branching out in all these new areas, I can't wait to see what you create with this, what you're doing.
Oh yeah, no, I mean you went through E3, Mike, and now E3, even in that respect, is so different. Just the length of it itself is much longer because I found myself having to add in more about energy and
Mm.
helping people to understand everything is created twice, first in our mind and then in physical reality. But what does that mean? And so we've really had to dive deeper into the aspect of energy. So E3 just itself wasn't complete until I added all of that in.
Yeah. So enlighten everyone who's listening. What is E3?
So E3 is a customized program that I designed, really based on my own blood, sweat, and tears in my many, many years of digging deep, introspection therapy, all of the things. So it's a collection of my most favorite exercises. And when I say favorite, I don't necessarily mean the ones that I smile about, but the ones
Mm.
that really dug deep, the ones that really brought me to a space where I could understand and a space where I could truly feel healing happening. And so it's a three-phase program. Phase one is called Empower, and Empower is all about healing. So looking into the programming or the past trauma, anything that's been holding you back, anything that's making you stand still, anything that's blocking you, we really dig into that. But one of the wonderful, most beautiful keys that comes out of the Empower phase is that you don't have to know what happened. You don't have to know who is chasing you in your dreams, or you don't have to know who the perpetrator was or what exactly they did in order to let go and in order to heal. And that's a really big part of the shadow work that we do. Some people come to me and they're afraid. They're afraid to scratch at those wounds. They're afraid to pull off the Band-Aid. They're afraid of what they're going to find. And what I love to share with people is you don't have to do that. You don't have to pick off the scab. You don't have to go into a space where you don't want to go, because I am not about re-traumatizing you. That's not healing. And I found that it just in my own story, I, was at one point a victim of domestic violence, and I started working at a domestic violence shelter, and I was counseling and helping the women. And then I realized that I was actually re-traumatizing myself by doing that, because they wanted to know my story. And so I really
Oh
wanted to share it
wow.
with them to help them through, and thinking that that was going to help them heal. And then I started to realize words that were coming out of my mouth, phrases that were coming out of my mouth, mostly towards my kids, and I'll be honest, mostly towards my daughter, made me realize that, holy shit, I'm reliving this trauma, and I'm even taking it out on her. And it was horrific. And I had to recognize that, yes, I've done my healing. I did my therapy. I did my coaching. I did my Reiki, all of my energy work. I went to see a theta healer, all kinds of things that I did. But just by retelling that story over and over again, it was bringing it all back. And I found myself reliving it. And so when I go through E3 with my clients, I want them to know that it is not about ripping off the Band-Aid. It is not about re-traumatizing yourself. It's honestly simply understanding what's the programming that came out of it and what do you need to reprogram. And then eventually we get into, Mike, I don't know if you remember the F word, but we get into that F word of forgiveness, because that's where true healing happens. Right? And so we don't need to know all of the gory details, and we certainly don't need to share all of the gory details in order to be able to forgive and move on. So that is phase 1. And then we move into phase 2. I call it the magic phase, where we learn about the laws of the universe, and we learn about the powers of manifestation and the power that you have to create, the power that is within you, within your own 2 hands. And that's where I introduced the idea that we are all the children of the divine creator. And we are born in the image of the divine creator. And because we're born in the image of the divine creator, we have the same power to create within us. And so that's where phase 2 really, dives in, and we get to talk about manifestation, and we get to talk about counter manifestation, and what are the things you're doing to stop yourself from manifesting. And then phase 3 is the enlightened phase, phase 3 is the evolve phase. And it's all about the evolution, the awakening, right? So this is where we truly understand, we start talking about the levels of living. So, the common concept is that it's 4 levels of living, and most people, about 85% of the world's population, lives in level 1, which is the victim. Why me? Why is this always happening to me? And then we start stepping up into level 2, level 3, level 4. And
can you briefly touch on those 4 levels? Like this was something in your
Sure.
training that I found fascinating. Was the 4 stages of enlightenment, or is it awakening? How does this go?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and it's commonly talked about as 4 levels. There are, I think Michael Beckwith actually has a 5th level in, but the 4 levels, the idea is, it starts with why me. So why is this happening to me? I'm a victim of circumstance, right? Everything that's happening is happening to me. And so that's where most people are. And it's a very unconscious level. It's where you are allowing circumstance to dictate your life, or where you're living by default. Then we step up into level 2, and level 2, let's see, Mike, it's been a while since I actually taught with the words. Level 2 is that it's happening for me. Okay, so now life is happening for me. I can understand that things are happening, but they're happening for me because ultimately they're not bad. They end up being good if I just give it enough time. Right. And so that's where we start to play with manifestation. That's where you can start to play with you get kind of little sparks of magic. There's an understanding, there's an awareness, there's absolutely a connection to higher self, but you're still playing small. And then you step into level 3. So you've got why me, for me. Level 3 is by me. So now I am the creator of what's happening with me and to me and around me, right? So it's the recognition that everything that happens is happening through my level of awareness and through my frequency. So, we understand like attracts like, that whole, basic idea of law of attraction, but like attracts like. So like frequency attracts like frequency. So wherever you're resonating, that's what's coming to you. And so that's kind of the level of taking responsibility. But that's also the level where most people start to find higher levels of success. And when I say success, it's everything. It's relationships, it's wealth, it's career, it's happiness, it's purposefulness. It's a more well-rounded way of living. It's generosity, the flow of abundance is going from you to you, from you to you. Energy loves a circuit. And so living on level 3, you're really living in that circuit level of energy. And then level 4, basically Jesus and Mother Teresa. So those are the ones who have completely transcended the idea of human life, and they've lived into their fullest potential. It was once said that Mother Teresa was one of the most wealthy people on earth ever to live, not in what, riches she has or material, cash or money, but in the amount of money that she was able to raise for others. And so, she just, everything she got, she gave away. Everything she got, she gave away. And it was, that living above the necessity of the material world. And so that's level 4.
Well, what's so beautiful is, like you said, these were all things that you came across that created this. Each thing helped you dive into yourself. And the one thing I love about your program is it's truly a staircase. Each step builds into the next step. And it's all about raising your awareness, raising your energy, raising your dream, your authentic self. And each thing builds into the other. So I'm excited to see what you've integrated into your program since I did it.
Thank you. So if I can even add to that a little bit more, it's not just a staircase, it's a spiral staircase, right? We know that nature loves spirals, and this was designed intentionally to be a spiral so that as you are spiraling up, of course we have these patterns in our life. They keep coming to us until we figure out a way to really be done with them. But that being done with them has to do with our healing. And so in E3, you learn how to handle these patterns as they come to you. And each time they come around, if you're doing your work, you're facing it at a higher level of awareness. And so you're able to handle it in a much deeper, more profound way that leads you to the space where you can finally poof, let it go. And so, most people actually live life in that downward spiral where, it keeps happening and it's getting worse and it's getting worse. And of course, the universe wants you to learn. So every lesson the universe sends to you, if you don't learn from that lesson, it's going to send it to you again, but it's going to be amplified. And so instead of being a pain in your neck, it's going to be a car accident, right? Because you didn't learn from the last one. So now you need to learn. You need to learn, and it's not going to give you a choice. So it's going to make it hit you harder.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot on this podcast.
We do.
Yeah.
You can either go willingly or you're going to go kicking and screaming. It's just, you're going to go.
Right. Right. So this is designed to make it more gentle. So each time it comes, it's still, those patterns are still going to show up, but because you're at a higher level of awareness, they don't have to show up so amplified, right? They actually calm down. So then you're getting these little pop quizzes. Hey, just testing. How's that awareness right now? Are you able to take this on and recognize that it means nothing? So because everything means nothing, right? So that's the way that E3 was designed, with that spiral staircase, that upward spiral staircase in mind, elevating your awareness each time.
Beautiful. So you've just, with all our interactions, you have gained so much wisdom over the years from different mentors you've had to just expanding your knowledge as far as you can reach. You are someone who loves to digest wisdom. But what philosophical practices did you have prior to this path before your awakening?
When I read that question in preparation for this, I really had to kind of sit with myself. My very first level of awakening, I wrote about it in college, but it was a trip that I took when I was 17 years old to Cape Cod and Provincetown, if anybody's aware. So I went camping with my cousin, a very good friend of ours, and my uncle. And it was actually designed, my uncle kind of orchestrated it so he could come out to me. And the funny thing was, I knew for a long time that he was gay. He didn't need to come out to me, but he wanted to have that moment. But I found in that trip the profound depth that I could see into people, because he, started by saying, hey, do you understand Uncle Robert and me? And, and he's talking. And I was like, Timmy, you don't even need to go there. I love you so dearly. And completely turned the conversation around on him. He thought he was going to have to explain things to me.
Yeah.
But I already, and I could remember, I was 5. I think I was about 5. He was going to the prom, and he was going to the prom with a girl. And I thought that was so strange. Why would he go to the prom with a girl? Now, here I am. I don't understand what it means to be gay or straight or whatever. But I thought it was so strange that he was going to the prom with a girl. And so in that moment, I got to share that with him and say, I've always seen you. I've always known who you are. And you are one of the most meaningful people in my life. So please don't think that I think anything of you other than you are an incredible human being. And so I actually did a study on Walker Percy, who is an author, and he had written this short story about the unassuming traveler. And I was able to compare my story, my weekend there, as the unassuming traveler, going in without any kind of idea of what was going to happen and just allowing. And I think for the first time maybe in my life, just allowing what was going to happen. And it ended up being, to this day, now I'm, a lot older, now 30 years older. And I still look back at that weekend and say, wow, that was an incredible shift that weekend. And so I think that's when it all started. That's also when I started to listen to Abraham Hicks, who has been, such an incredible influence on me in my journey. And definitely, this has been a journey where I come to it and fall away from it and come to it and fall away from it. But I would say that was the first time that I ever came to it.
Wow. No, that's so profound when you sort of realize, I know I've always been deeply empathetic, and it's something that slowly became something that I found defining about me, because it's I love connection, and being able to see people deeply is such a gift. To be able to understand people without them even having to say anything, it can be heavy at times, but it's such a blessing.
Yeah. It's a superpower.
It is.
Yeah.
I was just telling a coworker this morning, because I met somebody for the first time. We both did, and shook the guy's hand, and it was like I already got him 65-70%. I already know everything I need to know about him with just that handshake, and it turned into a conversation between me and a coworker. It is a gift. When you first start experiencing it, it can be kind of a curse, because you don't really know what to do with it, and
absolutely,
there's nobody around that you can ask, really, and you have to spend time with a bunch of, as I like to tell Michael, a bunch of old dead people in books who were alive 1,000 years ago, and you just got to try to figure it out from there sometimes. So, but it is really a superpower. I mean, just simple awareness is really a superpower at this point.
Yeah,
it just blows my mind.
What's so incredible now is that there are people you can turn to. You know, I remember having a conversation with my son's preschool teacher. And I said, look, I don't know if you're going to understand the language that I use, but please understand that he is a very, very deep empath. And she goes, oh, absolutely. Oh, sure. And we ended up having just this wonderful conversation about how he's going to need to be supported, because this is the first time he's ever been in a group of energy.
Right.
And so, it was really wonderful that I could almost, I think for the first time, just say, hey, here's the deal, and have them just get it and have them know. And so the awareness is growing. I used to teach a class called So You're an Empath, Now What? And it was about taking your empathic power and turning it from a curse into a superpower.
That is a great title for a class.
Thank you.
Because it really is like that. Like, okay, I'm an empath, so now what? Now what do I do, right? It's perfect.
Yep, because you know it all along, you just don't have a language for it.
Yes.
And I think that's more when it's the curse, because oh my gosh, I just went to this party and now I feel terrible, or I have to avoid grocery stores, or when you just don't know why you're being bombarded and how to manage it. But once you figure out how to manage it, not only is it cool and easy, but it is a superpower.
It really is. We did a show based on one of the axioms, the student and teacher, where these two, Michael and my wife Heather, interviewed me, and we kind of interviewed each other. And Michael asked me, I think one of the questions he asked me was, who was one of my biggest influences? And I'm like, well, a list of about a dozen dead people that have, I had no one. I just found books and read books, and I talked to people in my head. I know it makes someone out there's going, oh my God, he's crazy. No, but yeah, there was none of that back in the day. I wish there were, because nowadays, if I was growing up in today's world, I would be reaching out to people like you or whoever who knows what I'm talking about, who can speak the language, and that's a good thing now.
Yes.
You're like I did. I reached out to help learn the language. So you've had several mentors and teachers, like I brought up earlier, but who had the most profound impact on you? What was the greatest lesson you learned from them?
It is hard to single it down. I would say of my living mentors, my aunt is the person that I keep coming back to. She's the one who originally introduced me to Abraham Hicks, and then she also introduced me to the world of coaching. And, you know, a lot of my greatest shifts have happened in her office, or now, you know, she flies out to me. And so now they happen with her as the practitioner and me on my table in my office. But so she definitely has had an extreme impact on me and my, she's the person that I can turn to, the person that I talk to. But then, you know, if we transcend that, I would say Abraham Hicks. So never have been living. But as far as who I turn to on a daily basis for answers to the questions that, you know, still make me scratch my head, it would absolutely be Abraham.
Yeah. Abraham's amazing. I'm not going to lie. When I first tuned into Abraham, it was one of the greatest parts of, one of the most helpful parts of me starting the journey when I was at such a low vibration, to just have that reiteration of the power of energy and resonance and how you attract things at the vibrational level you are and how to raise yourself and just anything. I remember you actually were the one who told me about Abraham. And I'll never forget, you told me if you have anything going on in your life, any issues, just look up the problem and then Abraham. And you will find a video that will correlate with what you're looking for. And it never ceased to fail me that worked.
Yes.
What's a good starting point for people who may have never heard of Abraham Hicks, which seems impossible, but there might be one or two. What's a good place for them to start learning from there?
You know, I would say just open YouTube and type in, what challenge are you faced with the most right now? What would you say is the most difficult challenge you're facing? And then after that, type in Abraham Hicks.
Okay. And
just listen to because, you know, the universe knows what it's doing. So it's going to give you the audio that you need to hear the most. And then, you know, and it's funny because in my practice, I find people all the time who've never been introduced to Abraham. And so I ask them always to suspend your disbelief. I'm not going to explain too much about what Abraham is, but recognize that, yes, there's going to be a woman's voice with a man's name. And it's okay just to listen to what she has to say.
Right. So you have a blog over at your website, Courtney, Dematteo.com, and it's called Do You Meditate or Do You Pray? And then it has a little subtitle, Meditation versus Prayer, which is something I've seen happen all around me forever and ever. It was a great article. Can you take us through that?
Sure. Yeah, it's been a while since I wrote that one, but I can certainly share with you my thoughts on that. Would it be all right if I first asked you what your experience or maybe even what your thoughts were going into that article about meditation versus prayer?
So for me, it's 50-50. I pray when I need to pray and I meditate when I need to meditate.
Okay.
Because it's, you know, for me and all of my teachings and stuff are all about trying to find that balance, you know. But, you know, when I have a student, and a lot of teachers in the space that I kind of float around in, they're all like meditate, but they don't ever take into account that sometimes that could hurt people. Yeah. So you have to learn what your student needs. So, but for me personally, it's about 50-50.
Okay. So it was funny because this article came out of a conversation that I had with a chiropractor that I was going to at the time, and I called him the wizard. He was a network chiropractor, and so he was one of those that he just touched you
Yeah.
and you adjusted.
Right.
So, fascinating. But he had said to me, "Do you pray?" And I said, "Oh, well, I meditate daily." And he's like, "No, no, no. Do you pray?" And I said,
Mm.
"Yes, I meditate." And he goes, "No, there's a difference." And I went, "Huh."
Okay, I'll
And
bite.
yeah, so he and I started having a conversation about it. And it's funny because, I suffered religious injury and had to really overcome words like God. And,
Mm-hmm.
once upon a time I would say that word and it would feel like nails in my mouth.
Mm.
And so prayer was another one of those words, and faith
Right.
was another one of those words that just, they felt like nails on a chalkboard to me. And, through my own healing, come to be able to not only say the word God, but really love God and really
Right.
love the word God and understand that God is not the old man up on the cloud that's throwing lightning bolts down at you
Right.
and wants to harm you. But God is me. I am God, right? We're one and the same. I am born in the image of the divine creator. And so what I came to understand about meditation versus prayer is, like you said, the balance of both,
Mm.
because meditation is looking inward. Meditation is finding stillness. Meditation is even, projecting, but projecting your desires, your manifestations. So there's really wonderful things that come from meditation. But when you need to talk to higher power,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was, if I remember right, the movie with George Burns where George Burns played God,
Oh
and he
yeah.
looked at John Denver, and he said, you were just saying that you've been having a conversation with the most powerful being in the universe, and you did all the talking. And to me, that's what meditation is.
Right.
Right? So prayer is when I ask for guidance. Prayer is when I ask for help. Prayer is when I am turning it over, and prayer to me is deep surrender.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so
That's a word that comes up a
that's,
lot on this show.
yeah, that's to me the difference. Manifestation, or I'm sorry, meditation is where I feel like I'm maybe doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's the calming or the stillness, it's still an intention of me doing something.
Right.
Where prayer is me handing the keys over and saying, "You've got this. I'm going to take a
Mm.
step back because you know better than I do." And so that's where I come from when it comes to meditation and prayer.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that distinction too, because it truly is that. I mean, when we manifest, when we want things to unfold the way we want, it usually does not in the way we want it to. But I'll never forget when I was going through E3 program and I was talking to you about this, and you're like, think of it like baking. You mix it all together,
Yes.
you put it in the oven, and you leave it alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Leave it
Yes.
alone. Yeah.
You let the universe
Yes.
take care of the rest.
Yep.
That's where we struggle the most, is when we're trying to control every single thing, including every atom of the universe, every flow,
Yep.
every piece of wind. But just stop it. Just let
Yep.
stuff happen.
Well, it's so paradoxical in the way we have to look at this. Like, that's one thing that has blown my mind in this whole spiritual community, the healing community, is how many paradoxes they are. Because it's like, it doesn't necessarily mean I want $1 million. Okay, cool, make it happen. You got to put in the work to get there, but that's really not the goal you want to shoot for. But yeah, it's where uncontrolled action meets results, where you put yourself out there, you do what you want to do, and you let it unfold and become this beautiful thing. And the more you let go of what that picture is in your mind, the grander what unfolds before you is.
Inspired action.
Yes, that's
Inspired
what I
action.
was looking for.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So, what is the dream you have for yourself? What is the impact you want to leave behind? You want to have in this lifetime?
Yeah. So, it's so cool. I was actually working with a branding manager who works with you on a spiritual level last year. And the impact that I want to leave is helping to bring the collective consciousness into the space of one. And so recognizing that we are all one, and this whole illusion that we have of separation is nothing more than an illusion. And so I am you and you are me. And the work that we do, especially in those alchemy sessions where, I'm simply channeling your vision. I'm simply channeling your space and your creation for you. There's to me, no better moment of that oneness, that concept of one than, me standing there as the practitioner, but we have both released all limitations of our body, and we are out in, who knows, one of my mentors calls it blue space somewhere, and we're there together, and we're seeing through the same third eye.
Oh, it's beautiful. Well, and it's like, I think society goes through these cycles, right? We talk about patterns, and it's like society always builds itself up a little closer to unity, then it tears itself down, and then it builds itself up grander than it was, and then tears itself down. And I do think that the next major evolution for man, I feel we're in that sort of tear down phase right now, but I truly think that at the heart, connection and unity through a lot of these practices, especially mental health and discovering and understanding ourselves, is the next phase in human evolution, in societal evolution. I don't know how far out that is, but I do believe that's what's on the other side of the next reconstruction of society.
I think we'll start to hear more people talking about spiritual health. Mental health is, well, first of all, it's a hot button topic right now, but I think that it's very misunderstood. And it's once again looking at only one aspect of the human condition, and it's forgetting about the holistic. And so with this evolution, what I think is truly coming, and what I guess what I see coming is more of an understanding of spiritual health, and the idea that we are far beyond the limits of this body, right? The container that's holding my spirit right now. And we're working in a direction where we get to have those conversations in schools and at work, and I'm already having them on buses and on trains and on airplanes.
We tend to find our fellows when we're open, our kin, so to speak. They come to us. But surrendering and opening, that's the hard part for a lot of folks. It's hard to surrender. It's hard to think that, well, if I just let go, everything will fall into place. Because that's not how we're brought up. That's not how society is designed. And, we're brought up to, you have to rely on this person and this person and this person. And there's a whole chain of things that we've built over here. And for most people, I think it's hard to surrender. That's just because we're taught surrender is bad. Hold on to all your power, but really, a lot of that power is just not. It's not real. It's false power.
Exactly. It's the idea that surrender is a weakness.
Right.
Let's look at it like surrender, vulnerability, and trust. The three major pillars that we need to cultivate to have abundance in our life. We need to be able to surrender our problems. We need to surrender our struggles. We got to be vulnerable enough to talk about what's going on with us, to create those connections where we can rely on one another, which is where trust comes in. And we must trust one another to be able to hold our own weight, as well as to say when we can't hold our weight for now. It's such a beautiful mix of just what we once thought was the weakest of humankind is actually something that creates the strongest of community.
Yes, I always tell my students that surrender is the action of faith. And so when you are in true faith, so the understanding that the universe has your back, that everything is being taken care of, that you are being taken care of, when you really come to that understanding, that's when you can take the action of surrender.
So this kind of segues into the next question I have for you. What advice would you have for those folks who have kind of reach that point where they want to help the world in a way like you and your fellow teachers do, your fellow coaches and practitioners, but they're scared to kind of step out into that practice. And what kind of pitfalls would you warn them about? What kind of things get them through those barriers?
So the answer to everything is faith, right? It's having faith in yourself and your abilities. It's having faith in the fact that if you need money in order to get your certification or your degree or whatever it is, that it's going to show up. It's going to be there. The pitfalls, everybody has their own path. And so I'm always very careful to say, oh, well, this is going to happen. And when this happens, don't be surprised. Because just because it happened to me doesn't mean it has to happen to you. I've certainly had numerous pitfalls along my path. But at the same time, do I want to steer people away from that? Probably not, because I'm a much, much wiser, stronger business owner because I experienced those pitfalls. Plus, I am able to really empathically align with my clients because I've experienced those pitfalls, and I can say, I've been where you are.
Right.
And here's my hand. Let me help you over that puddle. Here, let me lay down my cape for you so you can walk across, or whatever it is. I'm up on a ladder and I'll offer a hand up. So, I don't know that I would want to warn anybody against pitfalls other than just recognize that it may not be a straight line from here to there.
Right.
But do we necessarily want it to be?
No.
And I can say that right now, sitting comfortably in my chair and recognizing that I had about 2 years, not too long ago, where I was at the bottom of a pit.
Right.
And knowing all of this, right? Having already done all of this practice, having had my business for almost 10 years at that point, a very successful business. And I basically ran off of a cliff and fell down into the pit and had to climb myself back out. So I'm not going to steer anybody away from that. It was horrible. It was miserable. It felt terrible. It was scary. It was all of those things. And my new business is so much more fun than my old business was.
There you go.
So I wouldn't have come to this if I hadn't have gone through that.
Next to surrender, I think a lot of folks have trouble with gratitude in all things. I look at my life and I look at all the really hard stuff, and I wouldn't change not 1 second of it. And like you, I can, I know, you're saying it from a really comfy chair in front of, right. It wasn't always that way, but had I not gone through those things, I would not be sitting in this comfy chair talking to my friends and sharing this information with everyone. So surrender is probably one of the hardest things. Next to that is gratitude, especially because we go through hard things. We all do. And it's hard to find gratitude for that. But as you said, if you just find your faith and you find your confidence and your courage, and you just push and push and push and push, no matter how fast you push or how slow you push, you just move a little bit at a time, you'll look back and say, oh man, that taught me so much. I'm so much more helpful now. I'm so much more strong because of it.
Yeah. And you know what, too, I'm reminded of is in Think and Grow Rich, there's a line that says fear and faith can't exist at the same time.
Yeah.
And for a long time, I believed that. I'm gonna put a twist here.
Yeah.
For a very long time, I believed that, and I lived by that. And so I said, if I'm feeling fear right now, then that means that I'm not in faith and I'm not really believing in myself. And I've come to realize that I can have fear and faith at the same time. It just depends on who am I giving the steering wheel to.
Right.
Yeah.
Everything that I do, it is with fear and faith, both. And sometimes fear has the steering wheel, and that's when I steer off course. I know this for a fact, right? But when I give that steering wheel over to faith, that's when I end up in the most beautiful golden palace, results that I'd been looking for and hoping for and manifesting and, better than I ever imagined. And so everything I do it with fear by my side. I just don't let fear drive anymore.
That's a good analogy. I know one of the biggest epiphanies I've had since we started doing this podcast is something Justin said, and it's like faith isn't the absence of fear, but it's where faith is stronger than the fear. It's where it's greater than the fear. Because fear can exist, but it's like you're saying, though, that's a beautiful way to really add to that is don't let it take the driver's seat. Let faith guide you. And that's beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what do you believe the world needs more of and why? It's one of my favorite questions to ask people.
Patience.
There's that dirty P word again, Michael.
Yeah. Patience.
Patience.
Another thing we say almost every episode.
we're in this really wild space right now, especially when we, I almost dread bringing it up, but I feel like I should. The political climate, right? I don't follow it. I don't watch the news anymore. It's something that I have left far behind me. And yet people come to me and they're like, I'm scared, I'm terrified. How are you not feeling this? How are you not experiencing it the way that I'm experiencing it? And what I know to be true is everything is working out for me. Everything is working out for my greater good. And when I say me and my, I mean all of ours.
Right.
And so, whatever line you land on, know that everything is always working out the very best way that it can. Just sometimes things need to go a little haywire to bring our awareness into spaces where it needs a little more attention. So if things are going haywire, what it is, that's the contrast, right? That's the signal of what I don't want. Well, I wouldn't know what I do want unless I see very clearly what I don't want. And so that's all we're sitting in right now is that side of the contrast. And so, I'm even my aunt, who, I already said is one of my greatest influences. When it comes to this, the poor thing, she is all over the internet with, down on this and down on that. And I need to tell everybody that they've got to be afraid right now. And I'm like, what are you doing? You know this stuff. The more you bring attention to the negative, the more negative there is.
Yeah.
So, I think right now it's just patience. Lean back, take a deep breath, and have faith. Show the universe that you truly do believe what you say. Yeah. And you do have faith that everything is working out for your greater good. And everything will.
Yeah. When kind of like we talk about, it's all about the unknown, right? The more we let go, the more we let things exist and allow the evolution of it. I mean, it's all working for our greater good. And sometimes it takes a little bit of struggle for it to rise into something greater.
Well, because a lot of times we are our own worst obstacle, and
True.
we got to get out of the way so that these things can manifest and work for us.
Yep. There's always two ways to go, right? And it's so funny because I actually work part-time at a ninja gym right now. I get to see kids and adults struggling with obstacles all the time. But there's always the path of least resistance and the path with obstacles. We just happen to be really, really good as human beings at choosing the path with obstacles.
Yeah.
We feel like we have to struggle, therefore we create our struggle. Yeah. And then it was Michael Singer. I love this line. He said, for every person that comes to me and says, how do you get out of struggle? I look at them and I say, stand up. You're laying in a puddle face down. Stand up. Mm-hmm. And that's all it takes to get yourself out of struggle. So it's just recognizing that we are choosing this path of resistance. We are choosing this path of challenge and obstacles. And when we choose to take the path of least resistance, then things will be easier.
Well, also just accepting what you have control over. The more you try to cling to these things far outside of you, the more you will be in turmoil because there's not much you can do. Even if you dedicated your life to trying to change these things, the small little ripple you leave will not do a lot. But it's the kind of work of spreading this awareness where we get everybody to collectively join.
Stand for something, not against it.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
So tell us about your website, Courtney Dematteo. I'm going to get that. I'm going to memorize that forever.
So
.com.
if you're in Italy, it would be Dematteo. But if you're in the Valley of Connecticut, which is where my husband and my father-in-law are from, it's Dematteo. It's that
Dematteo.
short A.
Yeah, yeah.
It makes me giggle because I'd rather say Dematteo.
Well, it's a very unique name. I've never seen it before. And you know, I was in the Army and I was all this, and I see lots and lots and lots of last names, but I don't think I've ever seen that one before. It's interesting.
Oh, that's so cool. Yes, no, it's very Italian. I believe from Sicily, if I remember my husband's lineage correctly. But anyway, yes, CourtneyDematteo.com. So that's you know, a great way to get to know me, get to know who I am and what I'm here to do and what I'd like to offer, what I'd like to help people out with. So it's a great first stop. But I would say, to be honest with you, I would much prefer somebody call me and have a conversation with me. That's when we really get to know and decide, am I the right person for you? And are you the right client for me? Because it does have to go both ways. So, you know, that consultation is complimentary. And I, you know, I think I schedule them for a half an hour or 45 minutes. But at this point, I've warned people, hey, be prepared to really sit and talk. And it might go an hour, and it might go two. And by the end of it, we'll know if we're meant to work together.
Well, when you know, you know. Yeah.
I think when we had that first call after I went to your vision board group, that we ended up talking for, I think, 2 hours.
Oh, yeah. You and I can do that easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what kinds of things do you offer there? If someone was kind of listening to the show and they said, oh, wow, I really like her, in what ways can she help me?
Yeah, so, you know, the first easy one is a Reiki session. Reiki, if people aren't familiar with what that is, it's simple energy manipulation. It's understanding that there's a universal life force that flows through us and around us. And when we are in any state of dis-ease, so disease, but it could be mental, spiritual, physical, anytime we're in that state, then that says that there is something disrupted within our energy system. And coming in for a nice Reiki session is not only relaxing and just a beautiful gift to yourself, but it can really help. I've had clients with high blood pressure and they've been able to come off their blood pressure medication. I had a client who she wasn't able to have children, and then all of a sudden she had one Reiki session and she's like, you'll never guess, but I'm pregnant. And then it happened again, second time. You know, I'm trying to think, I've had, cancer, you know, I'm not allowed to say heal and I'm not allowed to say cure, but I have had clients doing very well after their Reiki sessions. So Reiki can really help in a whole host of ways. And then there's also, so E3 we've already talked about, that's my coaching offer that I love to do, and I'll do it in group sessions, or I can offer it one-on-one as well. One-on-one is potent. I'll be honest, it's intense. It's incredible. It's why I make sure that I have conversations with my clients beforehand, because if they are not ready, then E3 is not for them. It will absolutely confront you. And it really makes you confront an awful lot of things.
We talk about shadow work a lot on this podcast, and that was a lot of what that first phase of E3 is, when you're confronting those wounds. And again, maybe not pulling off the scab when you're doing those deep dives. Courtney was great at sort of guiding through and helping uncover where those belief systems came from. Very intuitive with that.
Yeah. So E3, that's my coaching option. And then we get into the alchemy session. So there's basically at this point 2 offerings. I am in the process of becoming a certified RTT therapist, which is rapid transformational therapy, under the guide of Marissa Peer, who is a world-renowned hypnotherapist and psychotherapist. So I do have that as an offering, and then I also my piece de resistance, shall we say, are the alchemy sessions, which are just incredible. And I mean, leave you flying higher than a kite. Again, they can be confronting. So, we have a really great conversation beforehand, which helps guide. But when spirit wants you to know something, spirit is not going to stop until I say what spirit wants me to say. And so there is that aspect of it. Um, Essentially, the people who come to me, they typically aren't newbies. I have a great love for newbies and people who are just coming into this information. Uh, I'm not the teacher for them. I think that I'm probably a little bit more upfront, and I guess that's probably the New Englander in me. But I tell you what you need to hear. I'm not one to sugarcoat things, and I'm not one to dance around things. I'm pretty straightforward. So it definitely has to be somebody who has already an understanding and a belief of a higher power, and whatever you want to call it. I leave the word up to you, and you tell me what word you want me to use. But absolutely an understanding that there is something greater, that the cosmos and the universe and all that exists is far beyond the control of man. And so with that deep understanding, we can get into whatever healing, whatever direction you want to go, and then beyond the healing, but the actual living. So rather than surviving, stepping into thriving and thrive in your life. One thing that I say very proudly is I'm very, very good at taking the middle class and turning them into millionaires. And that really comes from that ability to see, right? And to move beyond that level 1 and level 2 living. So it's really fascinating, the work that I get to do. And I love, the universe knows who to send to me. So if somebody feels the nudge and feels like they should call me, then I'd say call me. And if you're listening to me and saying, whoa, this lady is crazy and off her rocker, well, then you're not meant to work with me, and that's cool too. And I love you anyway.
Yeah, there you go. Love you anyway. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And I love you.
Right.
Well, I'd ask which one of these practices do you find the most fascinating, but I think we have the answer there.
Alchemy for sure. Alchemy for sure. And I love it all. I absolutely love it all. And there's a place for everything. And there are some people who come to me who aren't ready for alchemy. I just had somebody today. She was on my table for alchemy, but we've been working together for 5 years. And so it took her that much time before she was ready and comfortable enough to say, okay, take me there.
Right.
I've had other clients that and they've said, I'm just not there. I'm not ready for that. And they like more of the cognitive coaching. And so that's why I'm here to help you and to meet you where you are.
Yeah.
And then ideally lift you to where you want to be.
That's really interesting you said that, because you and I are in the company of two people who came back around many years after I first met them. And that's just, but it comes back to patience, and you plant the seeds, and then you hope that it grows big and strong enough to, because I oftentimes also have problems sometimes with newbies. I'm just too much for them, but we have these conversations. Hey, you know what? I'm not the teacher for you, but I know a lot of people. If you're really interested in this kind of general thing, I'll throw 100 names at you, and you can, and I'll cheer you on. But that happens sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why there's so many healers, right? Because not everybody is meant to work with everybody.
Right.
And so I speak a certain language. And that's what, that first phone call is, understanding that we speak languages, and, we can call it all English, but it's really not. I speak a certain language, and if you don't resonate with that language, then you're not meant to be my client. And that's fantastic, because you've now just narrowed it down. Let me hand you 5 other names, go call them and see if any of them speak your language, and that way, that's how I think healers who are willing to share like that
Yeah.
Those are the healers that are really making an impression on the world.
Well, yeah, they're more interested in healing and making sure that
Right.
you're healed. And not only
Right.
does that give that person a much better match, but that opens up your time for the person
Yes.
that was meant to come to you. Yeah.
Yes.
So let's move into alchemy. I mean,
Mhm.
that's what we're here for today. I love the idea of alchemy. I teach it myself in similar fashion. It's not about alchemy of lead to gold, but of the soul.
Right. Right.
So, how do you define it, and how do you approach it as part of your work?
So really it's recognizing energy can neither be created nor destroyed, right? However, it can be
Yep.
transmuted. And so we need to understand, and once upon a time, the practice of alchemy depended more on magic and less on science because they didn't
Right.
have an understanding of physics and chemistry as well as we do. Now I feel like current day, we have a much, much stronger understanding of physics and chemistry, but we've lost the magic.
Right.
And so it's up to people like you and me, the alchemists, to remind people that both are necessary. Both are they're that yin and yang, right? They work together, they work
Mm.
hand in hand, and we have to be willing to recognize that there is magic in science and there is science in magic. And
Yep.
so bringing the understanding of physics and chemistry along with magic together. And when I say magic, I'm talking about the laws of the universe,
Right.
right? It's not a hocus pocus where I'm going to all of a sudden disappear in a puff of smoke. I could
Which would
do
be
that
cool,
if
by
you
the way. I
want me
mean, that would
to.
still be cool. You
Like,
know,
but we don't really need those gimmicks because there's real
no,
magic.
there
There's real
is.
magic
There
in the
is.
universe. And so tapping into that magic, i.e., the creative power of the divine, is where when I blend those two things together and I can bring my client along with me for that journey and that ride, that's where all of a sudden they understand that they are
Yeah.
far more powerful than anybody's ever told them.
Transformation always over illusion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so that transmutation of energy in its simplest form, part of the alchemy is while they are out in their space, I'm just going to call it that for lack of a better word, but while they're out in their space, one of the things that we do is we sit in front of a fire, and it's a fire of their design and their creation. They are going to be mesmerized by that fire, the red and the orange and the yellow. And all of a sudden, I'm going to guide them into the transition from the regular fire that we're used to into the violet flame of transmutation.
Mm.
And so now they're watching that fire change color. And now it's the violets, the indigos, and the blues. From there, we lift any of the negative energy, any of the toxicity that they've been holding on to that's been weighing them down and holding them back. We lift it up out of them and they watch it. And the way that I see it happening is almost like a whole lot of black little lead pellets that are just flying out of the body and flying into that flame.
Mm.
And then the flame melts it down. And this is the part where it transmutes, because that's all energy that can neither be created nor destroyed, but it can be shifted, it can be changed. And
Yeah.
so it's melting down into something else, and it becomes what the client needs. And that's part of the channeling part, right? So where now spirit is saying to me, they need faith, they need trust, they need love, they need motivation, they need passion, they need, and that's what this toxicity is now melting down into. And so it's that, metal transition
Mm-hmm.
where all of a sudden it's melting down into, and I'll see colors, I'll see rose gold, and I'll see gold, and I'll see
Yeah.
platinum. And then they take a ladle and they ladle it out into this goblet again of their creation, and they drink it and they take it back in. And so now where there were holes and crevices and cracks left from the lifting out of the toxicity, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to be filled in with the energy that they need, that they're wanting, that they're calling for. And that's the transmuted version of them, aka the alchemy. So
I
that's
really
the
love what you just did
chemical
there. And I wonder how many folks out there picked up on this. You went from the lower energy centers and up to the higher ones. And that was clever. That was real clever.
I did notice
Thank
that.
you.
That was real clever. But it's
That's
true. I mean, it's a good way of explaining it.
Mhm.
Because people we don't learn about chakras and stuff like that in school. We really probably should, maybe someday.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I that was awesome. I was listening. I was like, okay, I'm watching this happen in my mind's eye, and I'm like, oh, that's clever.
One of the things that takes me back is one of the things you drilled into me, and I've brought it up a lot on this podcast, the emotional guidance scale, which is so powerful, just the way we move through emotions
Yeah.
from the lower energies to the higher energies in the process of doing so. And yeah, it took me back to that.
Yeah, so if we're working on that on our own, whether you follow Abraham Hicks or you follow Dr. Hawkins, either way, if we're working on that on our own, cognitively as human beings, we can take it one step at a time. So I'm in despair and I'm going to step up, and I honestly don't have it memorized, but maybe I step up to anger, and then from anger I step up to resentment, and from resentment I step up to revenge. And so each one of those, you wouldn't think that anger is a good thing, but when you're leaving despair and stepping into anger, that's a really wonderful transition. So great job, congratulations. But as a human being, we really can only do it one step at a time. When we shift into higher consciousness and we're getting into the subconscious and we're dealing in an alchemizing space, I can shift people from despair up to love, and they can leave here far, far higher than they came in. And so that's, I would say, even a miraculous part of this work is being able to help people shift that quickly. So now we're talking depression and anxiety, and anybody who's sitting in a space of despair, they in one session can and should expect themselves to leap rather than take one step at a time. And then there's the caveat that we have to make sure we do that final step of integration. Because if I'm just jumping you from despair into love, you come back to your body and there's a huge gap. There's a better word, but it's not coming to me right now. So we need to make sure that integration holds tight. And so what I love to do is I make a recording for my clients during their alchemy session. And I do this during the hypnosis too. But I do a recording so that they then can walk away with a good, solid 15-minute meditation that will help the integration over the next 21 days.
Yeah, I've actually done one of your life alchemy sessions, and I reference that recording often about the palace I built in my mind and going to that space and embracing that energy I felt when we did the alchemy session. And it's just so powerful every time I revisit it when I really need grounding, listening to it and going on that journey again to put myself in that place so vividly.
That's cool. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. So what are some common misconceptions people have about alchemy?
Oh my goodness. It's so funny. When I first started calling myself a life alchemist, of course I had to hear from some of my friends and family, oh, you're getting a little haughty there, aren't you? Oh, you're thinking pretty high of yourself. And, they have this, I don't know, this image when I said alchemy, it's like, I'm thinking XYZ about myself.
Yeah.
And none of this work is about myself, and alchemy was the word that was gifted to me. And so had I denied it, I would once again be in the same place that I was a few years ago. And I would be denying my gift and who I am. So that was one of the misconceptions I had to come up against. Another one was the whole idea of turning things into gold. Well, yes, there is an element of creating abundance, and I'm not going to deny that. But no, you're not going to walk out of here with the Midas touch. It's and then the I guess the negative aspect of the idea of King Midas and the Midas touch and how it destroyed his life. Well, I happen to be somebody who really loves the energy of money. And so, I'm not looking to help create the next generation of greedy, wealthy people. I'm simply looking to create a generation of people who understand energy and who understand abundance and understand that it's limitless, and that we can go to, that well of abundance 2,000 times over every hour for the rest of our lives, and it would never even make a dent. I guess up against those ideas, I had one client who had been coming to me in my old version, and as soon as I started calling myself a life alchemist, she actually said that she couldn't come to me anymore. Okay, that's fine. I'm sorry in a way, but not sorry, and I send her off with blessings and hope that you find what you're looking for. So the word tends to trigger people.
I love it.
And
It's a
that's
cool
okay.
word.
I cool word too.
Yeah.
But that's part of my work anyway, right? I like to use words that trigger people so that they can recognize that they have a trigger, they have a button, and hey, let's heal that.
Right.
So instead of being triggered, it can mean nothing to you and you could be okay with it.
It's all about that resistance, right?
Yes. Yes, resistance is a whole nother topic.
Yeah. I remember before I started this journey, when I first started talking with Justin, one of the reasons it was more him dipping his toes to see where I was at was all the resistance I had to a lot of the woo-woo terminology. Not that he ever really brought it up much, but it took me getting to that, I hate to call it a breaking point, but that point where I realized that how I thought of the world was so small compared to what it was. And being able to be receptive to learn what is out there. There's nothing wrong with trying to gain awareness. And I think a lot of people are afraid to branch out further than what feels, I guess, taboo.
Yeah, Heather just said, I don't know if you guys heard it. Heather said, because sometimes some of us wake up or are raised in places where everything is taboo, except for this one thing or this one perfect path or this
Absolutely.
tightrope you have to walk. And how stressful is that? I was lucky. I'm grateful that I was able to break free from that when I was very young, 7, 8 years old. I just said, you know what? Screw this. I'm not doing anything that these people are doing because they're crazy. I thought they were crazy. They probably thought I was crazy, but but I recognize that a lot of people don't have that opportunity until they're much older and they've gone through so much stuff that they, as Michael said, that they did break, and that was the time when there was an obvious break, and now I have to fix this or I can't move. So but it's been my experience that some of the greatest people I've ever had the honor of working with or meeting was broken in some way, and they healed, and I love them so much because you said it earlier, Courtney. They've gone through it, they've done it, and now they're here to heal. We have an axiom that says heal yourself by healing others, and there's this thing that happens when you work with someone and you heal them, and you find that you're kind of taking some of that too, and it's beautiful because if you're empathic, which most people in this space are, you kind of absorb some of that healing as you're helping them get rid of that nasty stuff, that corruption that's in them. It wasn't their fault, it's there, but it's their responsibility to remove it now. So take us through. You have this this 6-step approach to your life alchemy sessions. Can you tell us why you approach it this way, and why it has been such a powerful way to address people holistically?
Absolutely. So the funny thing is, this 6 steps is very organic. So it's not like I'm like, okay, we're in step 1 now. Okay,
Gotcha.
here comes step 2. It really just happens. This first came the alchemy sessions. Then when I had to explain it to somebody, I had to break it down into the 6 steps so that I could make it tangible for people to feel and to understand.
Gotcha.
So there are certain things that need to happen simply as a responsible practitioner. One of them, that first step of the relaxation, the induction, right? So this is, people are coming to me from all kinds of walks of life and everything that they have going on outside of the walls of this room. And so I have to be able to help them release all of that baggage so that they're open and available for all of the next things to happen. And so that essentially is step one, is the induction. Part of that is building rapport. Part of it is getting them comfortable on the table physically, so that, because I don't know if you've ever been to like a massage therapist or something where you're laying on the table and they haven't taken care of your comfort. And now all of a sudden you're laying in a position that's really uncomfortable. And instead of being able to focus on relaxing into your massage, you're focused on the fact that your lower back hurts because you're not being supported correctly.
Yeah.
So that in itself is a really important step that I engage in, and making sure that they are completely comfortable, that they can feel like they are supported on a cloud, so to speak.
Right. Because if not, they'll be distracted and detached from the healing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I need them to be here with me and very present. And then the next step is accessing the subconscious. And so that too is part of the induction, but it's the later part of the induction where I'm taking them down. So we're in just, right now we're in this beta state of brainwave, and I have to take them down to alpha and then take them down to theta. And theta is where you're actually getting into the subconscious. And that's where you're most suggestible. So part of what we're doing is we're accessing the programming that has been holding you back and limiting you. And we have to rewrite that programming. So in order to do that, I have to get into the subconscious. To understand that better, I think, what's his name? Biology of Belief. I'm totally blanking on the author's name right now, which is terrible because I love him. But The Biology of Belief is a great book to understanding accessing the subconscious and why that's so important in this work. But then going next into the energy alignment. So this is where, I'm bringing all of these modalities together. Reiki is so important, because if you aren't aligned and in your true self, then once again, you're going to be distracted, you're going to drift away, and you're not going to be able to focus on the work that we're doing. And you're about to meet some of the most incredible entities that you've ever come in contact with. And so I want you to be there, and I want you to be present. So making sure that your chakras are open and working and healthy, that we've cleared away any of the clogs, that we've cleared away any of the blocks. That's all really, really important to do. And then what we do now is going into your higher self. So this is where you are no longer the physical human being that we are right now sitting here and talking, but that spirit self complete. So you've released the human body. You have stepped away from the human body. You've allowed the human body to just lay there and rest and sleep if they'd like. But spirit is wholly active and activated. And so through spirit, you can go anywhere. You can have your journeys to anywhere you need to, multiple dimensions at a time. There's not even you have to be here or here or here. There is no or, right? It's and all of the time. And so spirit, now that you've activated spirit, this is where the channeling really starts and comes in, because your spirit is having these conversations with source, or with your guardian angels, or with your guiding spirits, or whatever it is. And so that's where I'm the interpreter for that. And I'm allowing that human body to hear and be active with whatever spirit is doing. And then we go into the timeline travel. And so the timeline travel is so much fun, because you can go back and you can heal timelines. It could be your own, it can be ancestral. You can go forward and you can see what's in your vortex waiting for you. Anything that you've manifested already, anything that you've already asked for is created, and you get to go see yourself living that. And actually, what does it feel like? What do I look like? How do I sound? Who do I talk to? Who's surrounding me? All of those messages can come through in this part of it. And it's simply by looking in a mirror that we're able to accomplish this. Here too, I'll have you open your book of life. So if you're familiar with the Akashic Records, you can go to somebody and have them open your book for you, and they can tell you all about it, or you can do it yourself, you know. And so sometimes my clients will pick up their book and they'll go sit down in a chair and they'll open the book, and you know, they'll write new pages in their book, or they'll go back and they'll review past pages. So, and again, that's all the channeling. I don't know what's going to come next until the image comes to me. And then I say, oh, okay, so right now you're walking over to, you know, whatever it is, your full-length mirror, your book of life. And now you're picking up your book of life, and now you're sitting down in a chair, and now you've picked up a pen and you're writing. So I'm just almost dictating what's happening. But that timeline travel is truly remarkable. And then we begin the integration. So that's where we revisit everything that you've done. This is the part where I'll start to record too. So we'll revisit everything you've done. We'll solidify that, yes, you have done this, and you get to take it with you. Everything you've learned, everyone you've talked to, everyone you've met with, you get to take all of that with you. And then we travel back down and we reintegrate you into your body. And so that's the alchemy process.
Wow. That's powerful.
So again, it's all organic. And then I had to break it down. Okay, next we do. And that's why I came up with 6 steps.
Well, my next question was, what about your new approaches makes it more effective than your previous work, with just how powerful it was before? But man, the depth in that, and the ability to go through time like that.
Yeah, it's accessing greater fields than I had ever had. I was about to say that, and I had ever had access to. I always had access to it. It was recognizing that I had access to it, and so that's what makes this more powerful and more profound. And truly, I wanted a way to work with my clients where they didn't have to come to me week after week, year after year, like therapy. I just feel like therapy is I love it for certain things, and I don't want to sound like I'm bad talking therapy, but therapy has its place. I don't see healing happen in therapy. I see coping happen in therapy. And I really, really wanted to bring my clients into a place where they could heal, and they could heal quickly. And I do have clients that come to me on a weekly or bi-monthly basis and have been for years, and that's wonderful. But we're not really going through the healing stuff anymore. Sometimes something will come up and it's like, okay, you've hit another, let's go back and let's do this work. But it's definitely more about helping them to create and helping them to manifest and helping them to tap into their higher power so that they can live bigger and stronger and healthier lives.
Yeah, that's very much in line with something I teach, especially those who reach a level of what we call a knight. It's the knight's job to help people get to a spot where the knight is no longer needed, so that the knight can go off and help someone else. But a new knight is born in that person. The seeds are planted, and now they're empowered. And if they don't go off and gallivant across the galaxy and help people, that's okay too. That's their path. But at least we have gotten them to a point where it's okay not to need me anymore. I tell Michael all the time that you follow this path and your heart's going to be broken 1,000,000 times over, because you're gonna grow fond of people, and the best part is watching them grow and watching them be empowered and watching them remember who they are. And but then they're going to go away, and you're going to be sad for a minute, and because it's heartbreaking, because you don't want them to go away, because you become fond of them and these kinds of things. But yeah,
that's when they become my friends.
Yeah, exactly.
I say, I'm not your coach anymore, but I'd really like to be your friend.
So I think we really touched upon everything that I wanted to ask today, but I want to give you the opportunity, as is customary with our show, to give our guests the final word. You could even sing a song like "All You Need Is Love."
Yeah. I think what I love to offer to each one of my clients is the ability to see life through the lens of love. Right? And so recognize that we can look at every single situation through multiple lenses. And this is where Dr. Hawkins' scale has really, really helped me. But what I like to do when I'm in conflict or when I'm facing challenges and obstacles is I ask myself, how would love see this? And how would love approach this? And that's always where I get my best answers. And so, I just would love to offer that practice to your audience, and always give yourself that opportunity. And sometimes we can't reach love. Sometimes things are a little bit too tough in the moment. And so, you can look for, well, how would acceptance see this? Or how would understanding, or how would patience? Find something that feels good for you and feels like a place that you can reach, and put that lens on. And just sit and ask yourself, how would this level approach this? And then follow what comes to you.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so very much. So you say you want people to call you. What's the best way to get your information? Is it the website?
It's my website. Sure. It's CourtneyDematteo.com. Easiest way to find all of my contact information. And you can email, you can call, you can text. I'm pretty available, pretty easy to get a hold of. Sometimes, I'll be honest, not as responsive as I wish I could be. Just a busy schedule. Busy mama
good
with
though, right?
2 incredible kids.
Yeah.
That I like to be very active and present for them. And
Awesome.
so, give me a little bit of time to respond, but I will respond. And I would love to schedule a phone call with anybody who's interested.
They just got to come with a little bit of patience. Just got to be patient, just a little bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's all such powerful work. Take it from me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you guys. This has really been incredible and so much fun to talk about, and so incredible to talk with the two of you. But to be honest, this is my first podcast since I've been back on the scene. So I was unsure,
Oh, wow.
and excited, but unsure about where the conversation would go. So I really appreciate all of the space that you guys gave to me. This was a lot of fun.
We really appreciate your time.
Yeah, and we'd love to have you on again. Talk about
you have an
different
open
topics.
invitation.
Like I said, you are a wealth of information.
Open invitation for you.
Anytime.
Anytime.
Maybe
Yeah,
next time we'll talk about resistance. I think resistance is a great topic.
There we go. The next
Agreed.
time, the next time you want to hang out with us guys, we'll talk about resistance. Open invitation. You just let us know. We'll make time.
Sounds good. I appreciate it. It was really nice meeting you, Justin, too. I've heard so much about you.
Well, thank you so much.
Connecting.
I hope at least 40% of it was good.
Oh, I would say
That's a good number to go with.
Yeah.
This was a wonderful, wonderful interaction, and I appreciate the connection. So thank you.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. With love and gratitude, Ad Lucium.